Hello and welcome everybody to Take here on SpiritLive Radio from Ryerson. You are joining us. The trade deadline is now, 10 minutes ago actually, and it's been a frantic day in the NHL. My name is Nicholas Robinson, and today I'm joined alongside just by Patrick Tallon because...
Yes, it's our first Lukeless episode.
Yes, we've got a trade here to break right off the top, yes. In what management has described as a method of addressing quote-unquote locker room issues, Take has traded Luke Burrows to the KMN show for a conditional draft pick. And Patrick, what's the condition, you ask? The draft pick becomes Nigel Gebekchin if Luke Burrows fails to return to the show at exactly 3:10 p.m. next Monday. This follows today's massive deals, such as the Florida Panthers acquiring Emil Juice from the Dallas Stars in exchange for a 6th-round pick. You know, some groundbreaking stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Patrick. Did anything else happen today?
A little bit. A little bit. Lots of stuff happened. There's two trades currently in the process. We know Vatanen went to Carolina for what was reported a prospect and a pick. And then the more recent one, the more shocking one, was Robin Lehner to Vegas. Those deals have yet to be announced fully, but there's a lot that happened today, and I'm going to we'll go bit by bit, not just the ones today, but some of the ones earlier this week that we didn't have a chance to cover.
Yeah, lots to react to because we're still getting deals coming in right now. The deadline was 10 minutes ago, but this is commonly when a bunch of stuff starts to fly
There's
in.
another one. Carolina acquires Brady Shea from the New York Rangers for a first-round pick. There we go
that's a pretty big one there right off the top. Pat, thoughts?
Yeah, I like it. I don't really know where to start, but I guess that's a good one. Carolina kind of got pretty injured and said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And kudos to them. A lot of teams, I think, at the end, will sort of break down the winners and the losers of today's deadline. But just to rewind a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about some of those trades we didn't get to evaluate last week. One of the first bigger ones was Tyler Toffoli to Vancouver for Madden Schaller, a 2020 second-round pick and a 2022 conditional 4th. I think that's good for Vancouver, especially since Brock Besser is out.
Yes, this is us attempting to break down the Canucks without Luke here. However, yeah, I do like that one for the Canucks. Just on paper, it's really good. Tyler Toffoli is a good player, and he complements that lineup well. Maybe I think the only stickler on that is that are the Canucks good enough to be making a trade like that? Mm-hmm. Are they in any position to do that? Mm-hmm. That's the big debate, right? I saw a tweet saying maybe that's the type of trade you make if you are one player away from a cup as opposed to one player away from the playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. But on paper, that's good for the Canucks, and in a weak Pacific division, if they want to go for it, they can easily win 2 playoff rounds now. So we will see.
And how long is Besser's out for the rest of the season, isn't he? Or at least
he'll be back for the playoffs, they're assuming.
Yeah. The biggest one, and we're going to jump right to your team, because this is one of the first. I didn't think Pajot would be dealt till later on in the day. I was shocked that happened during our midterm. Jean-Gabriel Pajot to the New York Islanders for a 1st, a 2nd, and a 2020 second conditional 3rd. The condition is if the New York Islanders win the Cup. You have to love it.
Yeah, you can't not love that trade. At the end of the day, it's one of those things. It hurts seeing a player like J.G. Pajot go, like it hurts seeing Mark Stone, Matt Duchene, Erik Karlsson go, but J.G. Pajot's provided Sens and fans lots of memories over the past couple of years, or over the long time that he's played for the team now. But the reality is he's got 24 goals this year on a rebuilding team. This is only the 2nd time in his career he's hit 40 points. This is the type of player that you capitalize on, not when you commit to, if you're the Ottawa Senators in a rebuild, and I think Pierre Dorion did exactly the right thing here. He did sign a pretty immediate 6-year extension with the Islanders worth $5 million a season. That's a bit too rich for my liking. I think Pajot's your perfect third-line player.
Yep.
And I don't think he's ever been or going to be much more than that now.
No.
He's like 27 years old. So perfect time to move on for the Senators, who now have 3 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks in June. What a wild time.
And there was a little bit of anxiety around Sens fans because there were talks that there were maybe going to be contract extensions with Pajot, and I really thought Dorian was going to screw this up.
Yeah.
But to get a first, and I don't know, Lamoriello, I'm assuming the Andrew Ladd, Zach Parise thing fell through. That was rumored to be a thing. I wasn't really sure what Lamoriello was doing. And there's obviously,
we'll get to that one.
Of course, the extension while acquiring Pajot, 6 years, 5.5?
$5 million. Just $5 million. Just an even 5. But yeah, that's solid from that's quite a haul for the Senators. I think that's what everybody's first reaction was. Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense for both sides. The Islanders need probably another good body down the center of the ice, and Peugeot's good. Like, he's a good hockey player. That one was never in question over his talent. Like, this isn't like they're trading for a guy who's like brutal but having a career year. Like, Peugeot's always been a good player, so it fits what the Islanders need. The price they pay is really good for Ottawa, so it does make a bit of sense on both sides.
Yeah,
And
well, I think if you look at the bigger picture, Lamoriello traded a first, 2 seconds, and a third for Andy Green and Peugeot. Yeah. Ottawa definitely, and New Jersey come out on top. I'm not sure why there's still some weird obsession with Lamoriello. I'm seeing it a lot, especially like on Leafs Twitter. For some reason, Leafs fans want him back.
These are pretty questionable if you're an Islanders fan. Again, Peugeot's good. Green is experienced.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting times on Long Island for a team that might not even make the playoffs. Yeah. We don't know. I don't know if you want to just knock Ottawa out of the way then, and we'll just talk Ennis and Nemesnikov quick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, I was going to go through each and then sort of regroup back at everything our teams did.
Oh, okay. I was just going to, if you
okay,
want to
so
knock them off quick.
Other ones, Andreas Athanasiou to Edmonton for 2 second-round picks. That's very good. I like that. Because I thought Peugeot was going to be the guy to go there. Athanasiou fits better. He's cheaper. I know this is the last year of his contract, but I think, if Edmonton's actually adding depth after it was all torn down by previous management, I think this is a good move for them.
Yeah, no, good move. Not that high of a price to pay for Athanasiou. When I first saw that, I was pretty concerned for the Oilers' sake that they were going to give up a lot more than they had to. But it does look like that's a pretty solid deal right up front. Athanasiou is an RFA at the end of this year, so the Oilers, who are notoriously in a bit of cap hell, and they don't even have that great of a team, will have to figure that one out eventually. But for right now, again, like we said with Vancouver, it's a weak Pacific Division, and adding a good secondary scorer to the likes of Draisaitl and McDavid with Athanasiou is a good move. The Oilers have been rolling the line. I think it's Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto lately. So
Nugent Hopkins has been unreal lately as well.
So they're going to need somebody to play with McDavid down the stretch here, and acquiring Andreas Athanasiou seems like it's a pretty good match made in heaven. They will certainly be beating teams for speed, if not on scoring.
Yeah, 30 goals, 54 points. Last season, still relatively young. He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
I really like that pickup. This one, another earlier one that happened today, was Vincent Trocheck to Carolina for Eric Haula, Lucas Wallmark, Eetu Luostarinen, there's a significant chance I'm butchering his name, and Chase Prisky. That's kind of a weird trade, but I feel I didn't expect Trocheck, first of all, to go to Carolina, but I think overall it's a better deal for Carolina than it is for Florida. I don't really know what Florida's doing.
Yeah, out of nowhere this one sort of came. Again, like you said, I don't know what Florida's thinking here. The Leafs are reeling after quite the events on Saturday that I'm sure we'll get to later. And I sort of saw this as Florida's big window of opportunity to sort of jump up and steal that last playoff space from them while they're reeling. But I don't think I've ever seen a team wanting to make the playoffs trade a top 6 centerman in the rush before. So I don't understand that very much. I think the return's pretty underwhelming too.
Yeah, Florida's kind of in a weird situation. After the offseason, I figured they'd be much better. I know they missed out on because apparently they were in on Panarin, but the Bobrovsky deal, Huberdeau and Barkov were getting a lot better. I was a little bit surprised to see them falter this much. They have been playing better. It's a weird battle between the Panthers and the Leafs who's going to make that final spot, because neither of them are playing as well as everyone expected them to.
This is the worst fight for a playoff spot I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. There's not much else to say on that one. The order here is all messed up just because I was trying to do it by magnitude of the trade instead of recent one. But another one we saw to Vegas as they're loading up in hopes to contend once again was Alec Martinez, 2020 and 2021 second round pick. I think that seems like a lot for Martinez.
Yeah,
that kind of seems like
Martinez's best days are behind him. Again, you're paying for experience like the Islanders did with Andy Green, and I'm not sure if experience is worth what was it again? 2 seconds?
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to pay, and I'm not sure how much he's going to help them down the stretch here. I don't really like that move for Vegas. I think Martinez probably going to hurt them if they deploy him how I think they're going to deploy him, and they gave up quite a bit to do it. So that's a pretty questionable one for me.
All right, it is 20 minutes past 3 o'clock. You're listening to Take the Take, a Lukeless episode. Just Patrick Tallon and Nick Robinson here discussing the trade deadline. Lots of action, and if you look at the big picture, this is one of the more eventful and exciting trade deadlines we've had in recent memory. Last year's wasn't that great. There were a few big moves, but other than that, there was a consistent move. At least it felt like every 20 to 30 minutes, and it's fun for us as sport media students. This was one that we were talking about earlier. Andre Kasha to Boston for Backus, Anderson, and a 2020 first round pick.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the thought process was here from Anaheim.
Because Anaheim's they're supposed to be getting younger, and Kasha's he's 24, but that's still considered young, and he still has a lot of potential. They take on the Backus thing, but even that first round pick probably isn't going to be better than Kasha. It's going to be a late one. I don't know what Anaheim's thought process was here. Boston gets a great player added to their middle six. Your thoughts?
Yeah, again, this is the type of player, Kasha, that I think is going to really fit well with the Bruins. He's a very underrated scorer. He doesn't have the career numbers to show for it quite yet, but again, his fancy stats are very, very positive at both ends of the ice. And if he can stay healthy, which is a big key here because he's struggled with concussions throughout his career, I can definitely see this one absolutely just blowing Anaheim out of the water here. I think this was a really, really smart gamble by the Bruins. And again, Anaheim just didn't get much in return. They got the first round pick, but they had to take on the Backus contract too, which should have been the price to take on the contract itself, and they get a C-level prospect. Right. So I'm not sure what Bob Murray's doing here. I think he could have held out for a lot more.
Yeah, Anaheim's kind of a weird team. We also saw Devon Shore got traded to I can't even remember. Devon Shore got traded somewhere. Anyway, breaking trade. We're just getting another one. New Jersey trades Louis Domingue. I don't want to say his last name. Domingue to Vancouver.
Okay, so loading up on goaltending.
That's
goaltending
fine.
Depth, I think.
He cleared waivers, didn't he?
Yes,
a couple days ago.
I think he's he's waivers exempt now for a bit, so that's probably just goaltending depth.
That's fine.
Yeah, with Markstrom and Demko there, they've had great goaltending all year, the Canucks, and if they want to go far in the playoffs, they're going to need some depth. So I think that's pretty basic paper move there.
Yep. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Patrick Marleau for a third-round pick. I like that.
Yeah, again, Marlowe's sort of revived himself a bit this year, going back to the Sharks after a bit of a trying year last year with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but probably a decent move for Pittsburgh. It depends who he plays with. I don't think he can quite hang with the big guns anymore in terms of the Crosbys and the Malkins, but if Patrick Marleau's on your third and fourth line, the playoffs as a depth piece, I think that's fine. A third-round pick is probably just a bit too much at this stage of his career to pay for that, but
third.
Yeah, a third. Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
And that again, GMs like to pay for experience. So if that's the going rate for experience, I mean, Pittsburgh's looking primed for another run again, so you can't really say too much about this one.
Yeah, and you have to give credit to Jim Rutherford as well, understanding that he has to maximize all the time in the Malkin Crosby era. The Jason Zucker trade, I don't think we had a chance to touch on it last week. The Zucker from Minnesota to Pittsburgh for Kalen Addison, Alex Galchenyuk, and was it a first round pick?
Yeah, great value for the Penguins. I think Zucker's going to fit in great with Crosby. So
yeah, and he already has a handful of points, so he's been doing well. And it'd be cool. Marleau doesn't have a cup yet, so if this is his chance, we don't know if it's going to be his last season. Another team might take a flyer on him at the end of the year, but if it's his chance to win a cup, that's pretty cool.
Well, if there's one thing we all want, it's for the Pittsburgh Penguins to win the Stanley Cup again.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Well, I don't have as much... I'm not as bitter about it, I guess you are, but that's different.
Yeah, no.
A player I think almost all of us thought was going to be moved, but wasn't, was Chris Kreider. He re-signed with the Rangers, 7 years, $6.5 million. Money isn't really the issue. It's more the term with this deal.
Yeah, the term is a bit much for... I mean, you're essentially paying him for his 30s here. And again, the money's fine. He's a pretty productive player. He has good fancy stats. He drives the net well. He's physical, which a lot of GMs like, and he scores. So Chris Kreider is a good player. $6.5 million is not bad for his skill set and what he brings to the table. But like you said, it's a term. It's a bit risky paying him that starting. I think the contract's going to kick in when he is 29. So you're paying him for the majority of his 30s.
Yeah.
Which is pretty risky for the Rangers. But if they have the space and they feel he's a part of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build there, then...
Well, it's weird because the statement they released a couple of years ago about wanting to, admitting to their fans that while they had made the playoffs and gone on a couple runs with Lundqvist and Zuccarello and those guys, that it was a plan to tear it down. So it seems
man,
kinda,
okay.
Yeah, Barclay Goodrow, first round pick.
Yeah. Okay. So that's breaking.
One sec. I'm starting to get heated because all the first round picks that are being thrown around for players that aren't as good as Thomas Tatar and Jeff Petrie. I will go on my rant later on, but I want to finish this whole Chris Kreider thing. Like, if you admit to the fans you're going to rebuild, it seems kind of counterintuitive to sign a player of his caliber to that long of a contract. But anyway, we'll get to these more recent ones, but I want to knock some of these off real quick. Wayne Simmons to Buffalo. This was a really weird one. I did not expect this. New Jersey retains 50%. New Jersey made a conscious effort to get rid of all their UFAs this year. What do you think of that one? I was kind of caught off guard a little bit.
We had a really long chat about the Buffalo Sabres off the top of our show
and since then they've been good.
Ago now. And since then they've played fine. But what are they doing? You're adding a rental, and they're 6 points, 6 points behind the Leafs, and there's only 20 games left in the season. Now, it's not based on how the Leafs and the Panthers are playing. I guess it's not the most outlandish thing ever to say that they could catch them. You're like, it's like a 5% chance they do that. But why are you taking the risk of adding on a rental at this point? Like, that's bizarre. Jason Botterill's got a lot of faith in this group. I don't know why he does. They've proven time and time again that they're simply not good enough. But who knows, if the Sabres go on some sort of a run here and the Leafs and Panthers continue to fall, then we could all look pretty stupid in a month. But I doubt it.
Well, yeah, it's weird because since you and I talked about and kind of went off on a tangent about how weird and terrible the Buffalo Sabres are, they've been playing well. They're 6 points back on Toronto, I believe 5 points back on the Leafs. Jack Eichel's been playing well. They've been playing better. And adding this, it's a low risk, high reward move. He's a UFA at the end of the year. I didn't expect. Apparently, Simmons waived his clause to actually go there. I thought Simmons was going to go to a place such as Vancouver, so I was a little shocked to see him go. Now, do we want to talk about our teams? We'll talk about the trades. Yeah, Barclay Goodrow, 25 years old or 24 years old. He has 20 points and he gets a first-round pick. All of these first-round picks that are being thrown around today is only making me more pissed off.
Yeah, that one's weird because Barclay Goodrow's like a fourth liner. I don't think that's market value. I think that's just an outlandish trade for a big physical guy that scores in the playoffs because he scored a Game 7 overtime winner last year. I think that's the only reason he's getting that sort of price. But I get your frustration because at the end of the day today, I watched the Senators do exactly what they needed to do and flip all their good assets that they have left.
Yep.
The tearing down is done for us, but Patrick, I can't imagine how you're feeling.
Well,
perhaps a bit frustrated with one Marc Bergevin.
This has been the theme since he was hired. I don't think Marc Bergevin is an intelligent man by any means. You look at the trade, Scandella for a second-round pick, that was fine. Thompson got a fourth today, that's fine. Kovalchuk got a third. Again, I saw the tweet that said that offers were better from other teams, but he wanted to send Kovalchuk off to a better place. I get that. Maybe that's brownie points to see if he can maybe...
Wait, that was a real report?
Yeah. So
I didn't see that.
Maybe that's some sort of unwritten condition that he tries to sign in Montreal, depending, and then Matthew Pekka for a second. But that's fine, and that's more or less what I expected. There were a lot of bigger rumors surrounding Price, Tatar, Petrie, but we're going to talk. I'll let you say who you think won this deadline, because I'm assuming you're going to say Ottawa, and I think that would make sense.
Well, from a seller's point of view, I think Ottawa definitely won the deadline.
So out of the sellers, who won?
Yeah,
Ottawa?
I think Ottawa definitely won the deadline. They added a bunch of future assets. What would we add total over the past couple of weeks? A first, second, a third, potentially a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Like, they did exactly what they needed to do. They sold on everybody, and they pretty much now have nothing left that they can tear down. So, assuming last year's trade deadline was rock bottom for Ottawa, this one's a bit of a step up. I assume next year it's a step up from here. So at least things look like they're heading in the right direction. But
they are. You can say that with perfect utility now because of everything he's done. But Dorian is GMing very well. And, you look at it, going into the draft, they have 3 firsts. 2 of them are in the top 10, most likely. 4 second-round picks, 7 in the first round. 14 total picks, and 7 are in the first 2. That's fantastic GMing. And you look at, I read a stat that said since they were eliminated in Game 7 from the Penguins, he's made 28 trades since, and he's done a fantastic job. And full credit to Pierre Dorian, who we all know.
He gets a lot of stick from me and the rest of Sens fans, and he's earned a lot of it. But
this really kind of shows they've built a base, and in 2 to 3 years, I think teams should be scared of the Ottawa Senators and what they're going to build. I would agree with you. Out of the sellers, I think they won. Out of the buyers, Carolina. We're going to say Carolina, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Shea,
Carolina
Trocheck.
for sure.
I would also put Edmonton sort of quietly winning with Athanasiou. Mike Green, another one. Tyler Ennis, who had just north of 30 points this year, had another good season with the Senators. So those are the 2 teams that I think won. If you could pick one team, actually no, I'm going to take this. I would like the floor, please.
Yeah, go for it. I know you got a lot to say.
Because this is ridiculous, and Habs fans should be embarrassed, and the fact that we're still going to these games and that the Bell Center's somehow selling out is a joke. Friedman, McKenzie, and everyone said that the ask for Petrie was massive. Same for Tatar. Bergevin felt the need to hang on to both because he hopes they maybe can contend for a playoff spot. They're not going to be better than Boston, Tampa, Toronto, any of those teams. It's contending for the second wild card spot.
If Ottawa picks first and second, are they going to be better than Ottawa next year?
Montreal? No. Ottawa's going to be better. 100%. 1,000%. And the fact that Bergevin did not trade a 32-year-old defenseman when his value was at his peak, that alone is a fireable offense. If Barclay Goodrow, Petrie and Tatar can get triple what Goodrow got, this is ridiculous. Every year it's, Montreal won't do anything unless they're blown away by an offer. But that's exactly why they're stuck in no man's land. That's why they're not going to go for it. And it's like, people say, fans can't really handle a rebuild. It's like, okay, fine. If we can't handle a rebuild, what have the last 26 years been? What have we been doing since Patrick Waugh was traded? Because I guarantee people would prefer a clear-cut plan and message laid out for the fans, laid out to the media that says this is what it is. Okay? I bet the reaction from fans would be a lot more tranquil, if you will, if teams came forward and actually had something to look forward to rather than selling a future that never comes. Because in 2010, it was the future. In 2012, it was, we have all these prospects in the system. It's built through the draft, but the draft picks we're gonna trade are Mikhail Sergachev. Okay, that's not how you GM. Thomas Tatar and Jeff Petrie are good pieces. Fantastic hockey. Not fantastic. They're good hockey players, all right?
Yeah, they're decent.
Are they going to contend with them this year? No. Next year? Probably not. And if they intend on rebuilding, by the time they do so, the aforementioned players will be out of their prime. Way out of their prime. Trading either of them today at max value is what you should have done, and their value will never, ever be higher. This is partly a script, just so you know, because I had to put a lot of time into this. Now, because I'm a naive fan, and because there's a tiny bit of optimism, the only silver lining in any of this is that Bergevin's lack of risk-taking and his misguided confidence that next year's group can make the postseason will ensure, hopefully, another bad year, in a good draft year. They miss the playoffs and he gets fired. That's it. But this alone is pathetic. And the fact that we're selling, is Romanov going to be the savior for the left side of Montreal's defense? I like Romanov. He's a good prospect. Is he going to be the savior? No. What are we looking forward to? He's ranked as Montreal's number 1 prospect. We're banking on Romanov, who I really like, to be the guy. It's ridiculous. And I think, I don't know, their value, they're not going to be better next year. Petrie and Tatar probably aren't going to have the same numbers this year as next year. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And he should be fired, and it's going to look dumb when he goes up with 1 first-round pick and Ottawa's there. And I bet he gets booed. at the draft floor in Montreal. I bet he gets booed.
Draft's in Montreal this year, right? Wow. Yeah. You see, I think that's the one thing, and this coming draft is maybe the one thing that Montreal management needs to see. It's Alexis Lafreniere is going to get selected first overall in Quebec, and I think the Montreal management needs to see that and say, wow, wouldn't we have loved a shot at that guy? Shouldn't we have probably tried to evaluate our team better and just look at what we actually are?
Yeah.
And tanked for that guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're never going to come out and say, we got a tank for this guy, but...
Well, you don't have to say we have the tank, but I like what I've said that what the Leafs did when the Shannon plan came out, what New York did, said we need to restart because
Chicago did it back in the day with Taves and Kane.
I saw a tweet that said, Marc Bergevin's position clarified. Quote, I will not mortgage the future by trading draft picks and prospects to go all in every single year. That's what he says all the time. That's fine. But Marc Bergevin, when given a golden opportunity to substantially pad that same future, doesn't do it.
Right.
So I saw another tweet.
He doesn't know what he wants to do.
And he's GMing just to GM. I saw that tweet. Mm-hmm. He's GMing just to GM. He's not going to take a risk because if it blows up in his face, he's to blame. But he's not going to do either. That's the problem. And I feel like a broken record saying this, but there was a little bit in me that thought at least one of Tatar Petry would be traded. And now it's 3:36. The last bit of trades are being announced now. Nothing on Montreal's front. Marc Bergevin is going to speak.
It would have made perfect sense for them to do it now. It's going to be even more frustrating next year, say, if the plan he has here to contend for a playoff spot next year doesn't work out, and you're trading them at next year's deadline, and you're getting a substantially smaller package than you could have gotten this year.
Yeah,
because of poor foresight.
Yeah, and I don't want a Chris Kreider. Obviously, Chris Kreider is a better hockey player than Thomas Tatar, but I don't want a Chris Kreider situation next year where Montreal feels the need to extend him to a similar extension
because you're not happy with what you're getting back.
And it's like Thomas Tatar's value. Like he got a first, a second, and a third from Vegas after a season of like 30 to 40 points in Detroit. He's broken his career high every single year since. 50 points, 55 points. He's on pace for more than 60 this year. And you don't get a first. All these firsts that have been thrown around. And you could get a boatload. And with the draft in Montreal, that does make a difference. Now, if he didn't make any moves because his leash is shorter, and maybe there's a chance he gets fired by Molson, which I don't think he will. Maybe that's why. But
yeah, it's almost like he does a lot of this to just constantly protect his job. He can't.
Yeah, it's to save
face.
He
knows he can't make one more move like the Sergachev for Drouin that blows up in his face.
Yeah, well, that was
He risked it on the Domi for Galchenyuk. Now, luckily today, this one has worked. We got another trade.
Pierre LeBrun just tweeted 30 seconds ago, "Don't think the Habs are done yet." So if I have to like eat my entire words, now I'm freaking out. Okay, I really hope something happens. Please, Tatar Petry, get a first round pick. I swear to God.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Anyway, I feel like a broken record because I've been saying the same thing. I've been tweeting the same thing. I thought your tweet was really funny today, by the way. But
yeah,
it's a save face attempt. But if he says don't think the Habs are done yet, and it's like Nick Cousins for a fourth, I'm gonna lose it.
Oh man, that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm thinking. It's gonna be like Nick Cousins to
this has to be on my show. I'm sweating. Like what? Like
yeah.
Anyway,
it's gonna happen at 3:59 as I'm saying goodbye. Oh my God, that's gonna be the last thing people hear on air.
So we'll come back to deadline. I appreciate you letting me rant.
Yeah, no.
But to quickly touch on the Sergachev thing, I think that was more of a PR move. I think if Jonathan Drouin does not speak French, he's still in Tampa.
Yeah, probably.
If that's sort of a touchy subject. But let's talk about the other stuff around the league. The big story that we saw Saturday night, and then we'll go back to the deadline if anything else happens. Go ahead, Nick.
Right.
Shots are 48-25 Carolina, and they've got the puck. 6 shots on goal in this period with so much on the line. Absolutely remarkable. An amazing night. And David Ayres, I'm sure, can't believe what's happening to him right now. Played half the game, faces a shot, makes the save. Keep the puck, David. You've just got a National Hockey League victory.
David Ayres.
6-3 Carolina.
Hands up if you knew who he was before Saturday night. Can't do that.
My phone died for 10 minutes, and I turned it on to 120 messages. Twitter was blowing up. David Ayres works as a Zamboni driver here at the Mattamy Athletic Center.
Yeah, we play intramural hockey there.
He's 42 years old, and he stepped in when Mrazek got hurt first, right? From Clifford?
Reimer got hurt first.
Reimer got hurt.
And then Peter Mrazek was run over by Kyle Clifford in the second period. And out steps the emergency backup goalie, David Ayres, Zamboni driver for the Toronto Marlies. He is a building operations manager, I believe that's his title, at the Mattamy Athletic Center here, which is affiliated with Ryerson, our school. So that was just wild.
Yeah.
Like, we saw it a couple years ago with Scott Foster in Chicago, the local accountant who came in and made 7 saves and was named the first star of the game. But by then, there was 8 minutes left in the game, and Chicago was up 6-2. When David Ayres came into the game, there was almost 30 minutes left to play.
Yeah, those are weird because Scott Foster, he faced a lot of quality chances, from Patrick Laine and Dustin Byfuglien. The difference with this is I get the frustration from Leafs fans. I get the Steve Dangle rant. I get all the frustration. They could not generate a shot. They had a power play. They couldn't enter the zone. I didn't see a single high danger scoring chance, and honestly, that's just an unbelievable story. That's really cool for David Ayres. And while Leafs fans are trying hard to just enjoy the story, they were pissed, and rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
But at the same time, you have to give credit to Carolina.
Yes.
The way Carolina adjusted, tightened up systematically was unbelievable, and full credit to them. But that's just a cool story, and it's rare for stuff like that to happen. I didn't think when it happened with Scott Foster, was that 2 years last year? That wasn't last year, was it? That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, Scott Foster. No, that was like 3 years ago now.
Okay.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But, man, like I have no words for it. It's 42-year-old. When they kept saying emergency backup goalie, I was thinking, okay, maybe they pulled some guy from Ryerson, UFT, York, one of the goalies that plays for the hockey teams. But then I see it on Twitter. The emergency backup goalie will be 42-year-old David Ayres.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And yeah, overall, it's cool for him. His wife was tweeting about it.
That was the best part. His wife's Twitter was the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool how these are just, they get just these guys. They come, they sit in the room, they meet the team. They're very reliable and volunteering in doing that. And I don't know, it's just an unbelievable story to go play at the Scotiabank Center in Toronto. It's pretty cool. Now,
well, you did say before that like Carolina deserves all the credit for how they defended so well. Like, we also just have to mention, like, come on, the Toronto Maple Leafs had to put a puck on the net.
Yeah, that was pathetic.
That was, as much as it was an amazing effort by the Carolina Hurricanes, it was an equally as pathetic effort by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
I don't know. What a week. They get blown out in Pittsburgh. Then they blow out Pittsburgh. Almost like Leafs Nation was ready to explode the first loss. And then they calmed down again on the win. And then it was like a volcano went off for Saturday.
Yeah.
Like,
now,
this is a weird sport.
I've defended Toronto. I watch the Leafs when they're on. The Leafs are a fun team to watch. But I've defended them because I don't think there's an urgency for them to win this year. Also, they just extended Jake Muzzin. I think it was $5.6 million.
Yes.
Barry's probably going to walk. Anyway, I've defended Toronto because Nylander, Matthews, Marner, these players haven't hit their prime yet. And if you look at what Dubas has done since taking over, he's improved the team. So this year has been a really weird year for hockey in general and just for the Leafs. You look at the Matthews thing that happened earlier this season, the captaincy, the Marner contract,
Babcock,
the coach abuse. It's just so much happened.
Yeah. And
I'm not defending how they're playing because they're playing poorly, but I don't get the urgency with them, and I get a lot of that's because it's Toronto. It's in the epicenter of a lot of the hockey in the country, and it makes sense. But I don't think that there's a rush, and I think I don't know, you saw Ovechkin say earlier this year, well, they're not playing for themselves, and they're playing, when you have guys making that much money, they play for themselves and not as a team. Do you put much stock into that, and do you see a team that's selfish? Because that word is thrown around about the Toronto Maple Leafs a lot.
I don't see selfish. I just see a lack of work ethic from those players. I think the one thing that a lot of people pointed out when the Leafs signed the big contracts for all their RFAs was that they paid these players before they won anything. LA, Chicago, Pittsburgh, when they won the first one in 2009, they paid all their star players after winning. And all those players weren't making big money. All the players that helped them weren't making the big money before the wins. And I get that the new RFA standard is to give the players the big contracts right off the hop.
Yeah.
But again, there is stock in the argument that the Leafs paid these guys before they won anything. But that's besides the point. I think a lot of fans have reverted to criticizing Dubas in this situation with regards to how he's built the team with a philosophy based on analytics and player evaluation. And they're saying, well, it doesn't work, so the Leafs need to go back to grit, heart, bring back Lou Lamoriello, bring back Mark Hunter, fire Sheldon Keefe, fire Kyle Dubas. I don't think that's the answer either.
It's really not.
It's really not. At the end of the day, one thing that I've seen a lot is that people are like, oh, well, you need the grit, heart, and soul guys because they work hard, and that's why the Islanders are good.
Well,
for instance. But at the end of the day, why can't Austin Matthews have the same work ethic as Kyle Clifford?
Yeah.
He can, but he just doesn't for whatever reason.
And I also think
that's the stunning part of this.
And I understand the argument for grit, and I've said this on multiple occasions. While I am more interested in analytics and overall skill over size and grit, I do think there's some stock to be put in grit. But the thing is, the guys who play gritty get more attention because it looks like they're working hard, chasing for pucks and making hits. But what that actually shows is you don't have possession of the puck. You don't have that stuff. I don't know what it is for Toronto. I think the losing Kadri definitely hurt them. But I think they made up for the grit in getting Clifford. I really like the Jack Campbell trade. I think that's a fantastic deal for the Leafs.
At the end of the day, the Kadri deal hasn't worked how some people thought. Tyson Barrie's, some of his underlings are good. Whether he's the one driving that is up for debate, but a lot of Leaf fans haven't really liked him. And at the end of the day, it just hasn't been... He played very poorly under Babcock, whether that was because of deployment or whatnot, whatever it is. The fit hasn't been there for them. I got the idea why Dubas made that trade, but at the end of the day, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So that really hurt them right off the hop because Kadri was a perfect 2C for them. But I'm not sure reverting back to you need grit, heart, and soul and toughness to win is the answer here. It's not.
No, I don't know. I just think they need to play better as a team, and I don't know. Like Twitter was like, do something. Everyone's like, Dubas has to do something. How can you watch this and not do something? It's like, what is he going to do? They're pressed up against the cap. Is it 100% on defense? Is it on the forwards? Muzzin has been their best defenseman consistently all season. He stepped up with Riley's injury. Barry's been a disappointment.
They have been injured quite a bit, to be fair.
But the thing is, they've been injured. Pittsburgh's been injured. Other teams have been injured.
Other teams have injuries.
But Toronto's stayed, for the most part, in the race. I don't know with this team. It's weird. It's a weird situation. I think they're going to be okay. And I really believe that there's something to be said about a team not being the favorite going into the playoffs, facing adversity, which motivates them to play better.
Right.
And I think if this is a year where Toronto could surprise you, why not make it this year after everything that's happened?
Right.
Because to them it might be a write-off.
Right. And at the end of the day, like we keep saying though, it does pose that interesting debate over what people value in a hockey team. And people point to the quote-unquote analytics model not working yet. Well, Pittsburgh has been wildly successful, as have the Chicago Blackhawks, two of the two best teams, in my opinion, that we've seen in the 2000s. And they've widely embraced the use of analytic models to dictate players like acquiring players with good zone entry numbers, transition play. That's all big stuff to them. So I don't think that's the answer for Toronto, is tearing this all down again.
No,
you
it's
can't
not.
do that.
You can't.
So the interesting question now with them that I'll pose to you quick. I compared this Leafs team a lot to the Ottawa Senators in the early 2000s.
Okay.
In the early 2000s, the Ottawa Senators played the Toronto Maple Leafs 4 straight times in the playoffs. They had Daniel Alfredson, a young Chris Phillips. They had Marian Hossa. They had, and right around then, sort of came through the ranks, right towards the end of that was Jason Spezza. I don't think he ever actually played the Leafs in the playoffs, but he came right at the end of all that. Now, when the Senators failed to win each of those times, management responded by trading Marian Hossa for Danny Heatley to shake it up.
Mm-hmm.
And the Senators then made the Cup final in 06-07, but that was their one last shot at it when that team arguably should have had 7 or 8. The Leafs now are on, I think this is their 4th year with the Big 3, and their 2nd with the Big 4, including Tavares in it. So this is going to be the 2nd full run-through with this group. How many more can you waste for Toronto before you decide to shake it up and possibly trade one of those guys? And do you do that if you're Toronto? Do you do what Ottawa did? Do you trade a Marner or a Nylander for a similar young player, but one that just offers you something different?
Yeah. I look at what Washington did when Washington got Shattenkirk and they built up their blue line, and Washington was supposed to be that team. It's when you actually, I think, have certain weaknesses that you do well. And I feel that if there are 2 you keep and 2, out of the 4, out of Nylander, Matthews, Marner, and Tavares, if one's not going to play out their contract, would it be Tavares, or would it be Nylander? Because Nylander's cheaper. Because you're probably not trading. You're not trading Matthews at all.
No,
and you're probably not moving Marner.
No.
So if it's one of Nylander or Tavares out of the Big 4,
right?
One of them's going to get moved. But
which one? Can you move Tavares at this point? It's a big contract, right? And he's the captain. Do they move Tavares like that? I think the only 2 guys you can move in that situation are Marner and Nylander, because while they're both great, they're the 2 most obviously frustrating players to Maple Leaf fans.
Yeah.
So it becomes like that ethical question of what do you do?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not losing sleep over it, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
This is good to see, but
it's fun.
It's
watching
weird.
David Ayres. That's
honestly,
fun.
This is just a weird year for hockey in general. All the coaching stuff, all the teams that are playing well. I thought Anaheim would be better. I thought San Jose would be a lot better this year. I didn't expect the Islanders to maintain their success from last year. Overall, some crazy changes.
Do you want to then now since we're done with the Leafs, do you want to just talk about maybe some past teams, Stanley Cup winners, and their approach to the deadline, and then we can sort of look at maybe who are the favorites now coming out of this year?
Yeah, you have your notes, so I'll let you start that.
So I took a look at former Stanley Cup winners. We will do the last 5 Stanley Cup champions for the sake of this conversation, and we're just going to look at their deadline deals and what they did to transform their teams, and then we'll probably just sum it up with talking about who, again, came out the big winner today and who you can see going further. So, Pat, I'll start with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2014-15. They acquired Kimmo Timonen for a 2nd-round pick and a conditional 4th from Philly, Antoine Vermette from Arizona for a 1st-round pick and Klaus Dalbec, and Andrew Desjardins from San Jose for Ben Smith, a 7th-round pick. And if you recall, Vermette was terrible largely for the regular season, didn't score all the way until the 3rd round of the playoffs when they played against Anaheim. But are those moves you would still be comfortable with a contending team making these days?
I mean, that seems like... Okay, this sounds cheesy, but Chicago was kind of a team of destiny.
Yep.
The way they played, Shaw... was Bickle 2012?
Bickle was still here at this point.
Bickle was there. The way they played was unbelievable. With or without those added players, that team's going on a run.
Yep.
And I'd be honest, I don't remember enough of that because Montreal was when on the run with Boston. I wasn't watching a lot of Western hockey at that time. But I think no matter what, that team was going to be successful. I don't think Vermette makes or breaks it. Vermette was better in the late thousands than that, but
I think you still pay that price just for the 3-game winning goals he gave you in the playoffs. Why not?
Yeah. You follow Chicago a little bit more.
Yeah, I watched them a lot back then. But yeah, they again, you'd pay that price every time for a cup.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, Quickly, Penguins in 15-16. Trevor Daley from Chicago for Rob Scuderi. Wow, that's a big one. Carl Hagelin from Anaheim for David Perron and Adam Clendenning. That one, again, really worked out well for them. And Justin Schultz from Edmonton for a third-round pick.
Yep.
That is how you approach a deadline.
100%.
And
Schultz was good. Rutherford does it every single year.
Yep.
He blows me away, and for some reason, they still end up having young players who are going to be good.
Yep. And that right there, I think, is the example of how you approach a deadline. You go for undervalued players. You didn't give up much for them.
Too.
They gave up nothing but roster players and a third-round pick there. That's perfect.
Yep.
All right, the next year when Pittsburgh won it, they did Ron Hainsey from Carolina for Danny Cristo and a second-round pick, and Mark Streit from Tampa Bay for a fourth-round pick. Yeah. So again, 2 depth defensemen. They ended up needing them both to beat Ottawa.
Yeah, and then after that, Streit barely played in the Cup final.
Right.
And then I feel like Danny Cristo was a Habs pick. I could be wrong.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. They seem to find a way to do it.
Again, depth defenseman, it's important. It's important heading into the playoffs, right? A lot of injuries rack up. It's a long season. Again, those are trades you make just for the sake of winning.
Oh, there it is. Nick Cousins to Las Vegas.
Okay, we'll wrap up with that one at the end. I'll just quickly go. Washington Capitals, 2017-18. Michael Kempney from Chicago for a conditional third-round pick. Excellent trade. Excellent trade. Yep. He was partnered with Karlsson throughout that run. And Jacob Jarabek from Montreal for a fifth-round pick. Another depth defenseman. He played for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, Jarabek was pretty good in the playoffs. After that, I don't even know if he's still in the league now.
No, he's not.
But he did well. I liked Jarabek in Montreal. I liked him in Washington. They for some reason were after him for a while, but those are 2 good trades I like.
And then finally, St. Louis Blues last year, 2018-19. They made one trade, which was Michael Del Zotto from Anaheim for a 6th-round pick, and he pretty much just did spot duty for them.
But
again, so I think this shows you very rarely Chicago went for the home run approach in 14-15. They whiffed, but it still worked out.
Yeah.
But I think going for the smarter, undervalued approach, like a Pittsburgh or a Washington, I think is clearly the thing you got to do in these situations, right?
I think so. I feel like if you add big names, like if you look at when a team, we're going to look at Carolina, or we look at Columbus last year, adding Duchesne, adding the players they added.
The home run approach barely works.
Yes, when you're too aggressive, and there's something to be said about the way a team is built before and after a deadline if there are too many changes. Like you said, the St. Louis Blues didn't change much.
Right.
Chicago didn't change much, but these teams, Columbus, that added all these players, Carolina were declaring a win, adding all these players. The expectations were for Colorado this year,
right, to
go after a top 6 left winger, maybe a defenseman, maybe add a better goalie, and they were pretty quiet. And people are ready to declare Sakic and those guys losers of the deadline. But again, I think there's a chance. Also, Carolina's not in a playoff spot
right now.
Yeah.
So
this is the thing.
But you look at what they did. I think they did very similar things to what the Pittsburgh Penguins and Washington Capitals did. They acquired all these Vincent Trocheck, big undervalued piece. That's bigger name than any of those teams acquired. Much bigger name. Mm-hmm. And they didn't give up much to do it. That's the kind of deal that you got to be looking for at the deadline, I think, like constantly. The home run picks and all that, I guess because in my lifetime I haven't seen Ottawa much of a contender or have to give up anything at the deadline like that. But that was the perfect move to me today. That was like the best deal today, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's also weird for, from Florida's standpoint. I'm trying to think the only real like blockbuster, closest thing that Montreal did at the deadline was when they got Vanek.
Yeah, right.
I forget. It was a 2nd-round pick and a prospect, Sebastian Kohlberg for Thomas Vanek. That's kind of exciting to see, but that's the closest thing. It's not Mark Stone level or any other trade of that caliber.
Overall, so I think what we can conclude definitely is that the undervalued pickups are the ones that work out so much better, and I think Carolina's going to be really happy with Vincent Trocheck this year and next. Quickly before we go off air, disappointment level that it was only Nick Cousins for a 4th-round pick?
Through the roof. I'm very pissed off. And I can't believe this. It's so like I don't know. Ottawa's gonna do well in Montreal for the draft. Also, real quick, Christian Juice to the Ducks for Daniel Sprong. That's a trade that just happened.
Interesting. Who was Juice playing for?
I might. I don't know.
All right, we will be back next week to tell you who exactly Christian Juice plays for.
I want to say Washington.
Pat and I are going to sit here just reminiscing about the deadline.
Yes.
Luke, you can enjoy the Vancouver Canucks, possibly in the playoffs, hopefully in the playoffs for your sake. Yeah, a couple of different deadline approaches. But thank you very much for listening to Take on Spirit Live, and we will see you next week.